that these bucks are all breaking up and they're going underground as they split up from their summer bachelor groups. It is a fight to the end, but I'm willing to fight it out. You're about to join me on one of the most challenging Montana hunts I've ever been on. You've heard of the November rut lockdown, right? Well, there's another lockdown that you may not be quite as associated with, but it probably crops up in some of your hunting problems from time to time. It's the October lockdown. Now, what's the October lockdown? There's no real rut going on, right? It's the lockdown when bucks begin to disband from their bachelor groups, especially mature bucks, and they go off on their own little solo place, and kind of just lock down. Now, they're just not staying in one place, but they're being a lot more secretive. They'll go out, they'll do their pecking order stuff, they're gonna feed because they wanna be as fat as Santa when the rut comes, but they're not being quite as social as the younger bucks out on the field. Another problem you might run into at the same time period, a full moon. And that's what I ran into in Montana, the October lockdown. Bucks disbanding and a full moon, and it made for a challenging hunt. It'd be nice if there was like a deer in this place.
Coming up on Deer and Deer Hunting TV, Mark is hunting with J&J Guide Services in southeast Montana. He's hunted Montana many times before, though never has he experienced a lockdown such as this one. Mark's patience, endurance, and overall determination are put to the ultimate Montana test.
Land of Whitetail is brought to you by Cuddyback, CuddyLink, 16 cameras, one cell plan, $10 per month. Scent Killer Gold with Hunt Dry technology. Apply it, dry it, and go hunt. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. And by B&W Trailer Hitches Tow and Stow, the last trailer hitch you'll ever need. Absolute best food plot for attracting whitetails during fall hunting season is Buck Forage Oats. This is their highest priority, and it's done in the world's greatest, most winter-tolerant oats ever developed. Visit their website at buckforage.com, or better yet, give them a call at 800-299-6287.
So approximately the first week to 2 weeks in October, bucks begin, well, they just don't like each other anymore. A couple siblings, they may hang out together, and some of those younger bucks, but anything that's mature and is showing dominance during the bachelor season, those bucks that are always laying their ears back or pawing at the younger bucks, those are the bucks that tend to go off on their own solo. And where do they go? Well, it's not that they just leave a property, because whitetails love the home territory, but they will go into cover because they're already fat, and they'll feed at night. They don't have to get as many calories as they do in the summer when they're really bulking up. You add all of this together, and there could be anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 days where you're struggling with finding that mature buck. Now, you don't have to get too scared if you're on a time schedule, yet that buck's gonna show up. The pre-rut, the testosterone all the way through October keeps ticking up until Halloween when he's at max load. Then he'll start doing a lot more of that pre-rut stuff, scraping, rubbing, setting up rub lines, and every day he's gonna add a minute to 5 minutes to his schedule in shooting light. We're halfway into the hunt. We're trying a new tactic this morning. We're teaming up with Rick Weiland from J&J Guide Service. Rick got his client filled. He said he knows where some deer are. We're keeping a strong focus on whitetails, but we're in an area, obviously, as you can see, we could have either or show up, and that's our tactic for this morning. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
With the October lockdown in full swing, Mark and his guide Rick are struggling to even see a single shootable mule deer or whitetail. Every day they are forced to change up their strategy as they attempt to race the clock. Mark does a fast study of the land, sits near water sources and likely bedding areas, large cliffs overlooking vast amounts of terrain. But as Murphy's Law dictates, what can go wrong will go wrong, and this hunt was no exception to the rule.
A cattle drive! John Wayne had showed up right when we needed to be there. Now, you gotta give these guys credit. They were up early, I'm sure as early as we were, but they were rounding up cattle on the same pasture we were hoping to hunt. But now we knew it was really time to make a change of plans for the better.
The change of plan was to head to new terrain further east and to have Mark team up with a landowner who also guided for J&J.
Leroy Schallenberger, Schallenberger. This week has been a little more difficult with the full moon. It's been really warm. We're getting into the pre-rut. They're not moving as much, and so the deer are there. It's just harder to find them. You have to get out and work for them and look for them, and sometimes you don't find quite what you're looking for.
You know what? We are down to the wire. The clock is ticking. I'm not even in the red zone yet. I've got to make a touchdown on this hunt. I was ready to go for a new pace and change of scenery.
Mark and Leroy have one last chance to get the job done and decide to set up near a creek bottom in an old junk blind. With very little hope left in sight and only hours left in the hunt, Mark keeps the faith.
This segment of Land of Whitetail TV is brought to you by Outdoor Edge. Make the cut.
antlers. There was a buck, a shooter buck. Finally, not a giant, but just a good-looking buck. It was the end of our hunt. This was going to be my last opportunity to fill my Montana tag. Did you get him? I thought I heard the hit. Holy cow. That deer, I thought was going to get away, and then you whistled. Did you grunt too, or what?
I whistled and then I grunted.
I was about to grunt, 'cause that's how I stop them. And
There he is.
you know, Montana's got a lot of deer. It can be challenging, and this is the most, I think this is the most challenging Montana hunt I've been on, and you said that.
It's been a tough week for
Huh? You know what's gonna be the nicest though? Not only seeing this buck, but I might get to sleep in my own bed tonight. Well, that's a nice buck. Oh. All right. Oh, just what we were looking for. A beaut and heavy. Oh, nice 4x4. Good browse. And you wanna know what? You know, I was in Wyoming before this. We're doing all these early season hunts. That there is the perfect heart shot, don't you think?
Yeah, it's perfect. Can't get bigger than
I can't either. Now, challenging hunts, you face them, I face them, we all face them, and for different reasons. Whether it's like this, that I came into a situation right when the bucks were disbanding and not quite ready to rut, and a full moon, or public hunting pressure, maybe hunting pressure on the neighbors. Some type of thing always seems to create a little bit of difficulties in our hunts. The best thing you can do though is just persevere. Go after them as hard as you can. Don't change up your tactics too much, but always be tweaking. Always be looking for ways to make yourself just a little bit of a better hunter when the hard times arrive.
Land of Whitetail is brought to you by Sever Broadheads, straight through it. Get armed and deadly with Easton FMJ arrows. Outdoor Edge, make the cut. And by Sportsman's Guide. Nobody sells more tree stands, nobody sells them for less. Sportsmansguide.com.
You know, I'm a lot different than most people when it comes to trail cameras. I view them merely as a tool, a very important tool at that, but for me, they're a tool to allow me to not only census the deer on the properties that I hunt, but also get a feel for what's out there. Sometimes some properties don't have what you might think they have. 3 things that I do when it comes to trail cameras. Number 1, pick the site, obviously. Number 2, prep it or maybe not. And number 3, how I position those cameras. So in these areas, we have a woods right here leading up to a food plot. perfect spot. Deer come in and out of here all the time. There's trails cutting in and out of here, just off the main trail. So I found a really nice spot here to place my cutty link. You know, this tree here I did not prep, and I prefer this over than trimming a tree out. I can tuck that camera right there. Now deer will see it, don't get me wrong, but I'm gonna spray it down afterwards and everything. But that's a nice natural camouflage. It's gonna blend in. Yes, they're gonna know a camera's there, but not for too long. They're gonna get used to it real quickly. So we get our camera set. You know, we're gonna fine tune the rest. I'm not gonna turn it on quite yet. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm just gonna slightly modify this. The one thing you wanna do is when you're tucking a camera in, this is really nice, is we got this natural camouflage here, but be sure that there's no branches here that are gonna be waving in front of your camera, because otherwise you're gonna go check the camera, or you're gonna, on a cutty link system, is you're gonna go check that home camera and you're gonna have 1,000 images of, you know, a branch waving in front of your camera. So that's one thing that you can keep in mind. This is pretty good right here. Everything's coming up good. I'm arming the camera right now. I'm gonna shut the camera. The camera is operational. Okay, I got one more camera to set up. The nice thing about the cutty link system is I'm gonna set this one closer to my home camp, and it's gonna allow me to check this camera and get images from all of them. I'm gonna set this camera up though a little bit differently than the last one. Okay, I got the base for this camera already on the tree. It's overlooking a mock scrape that it made last fall, and don't believe what people tell you. Deer use mock scrapes year round. That's the nice thing about this. So this one's gonna be real simple, is that I can just basically pop this camera on and get out of here without making too much noise and leaving too much scent. This camera is higher. I like to set these cameras, especially in mock scrapes, shooting down. The deer won't see them as much. They're gonna be preoccupied with working that licking branch, but as they're walking on this trail, they're normally not gonna look up. The other thing, I learned this from Mark Cuddyback himself, these little sticks that I got here, that little bit of breaking up the outline really helps with cameras. The deer get used to that, I find, a lot quicker than just slapping a camera on a bare tree. The nice thing about this cutty link system, all those other Cuddyback cameras are feeding their images right to this camera, so all I have to do is walk from camp, pull this card, I got all the images without having to go out into the woods. That's pretty cool. Wow, archery and bow hunting have come a long way in just a short amount of time. It wasn't that long ago when we talked in numbers. Now, if you know this number, you might be as old as I am, 2117. Do you remember those arrows? You know, those arrows and some bigger ones, the 2300s, we call them telephone poles. I mean, they were thick aluminum arrows, but man, they really were great on deer. Today, everything's changed. Technology has come a long way in bows. They're shooting faster, they're shorter, they're so efficient. So what do? Well, there's a skinny trend. The skinny trend is skinny arrows. Now you see some of these arrows and you're like, man, how can you kill a deer with that? They're so small. The difference is, okay, this is a 4mm, I got 5mm, I got 6mm. They're various sizes, but those skinny little arrows that got a little bit of weight to them really deaden the sound and really perform well out of these high performance bows. When you're looking at these high performance bows, they're almost overbuilt. I mean, you've got so much going on that, hey, we're just trying to shoot a deer, right? Well, the nice thing about it is if you're shooting 70 pounds, which I'm not, I've backed way off of that over the years, but if you're shooting max efficiency, you've got speed to burn, is what they say. You've got so much speed. These bows maxed out shooting 340, 350 feet per second. It's super fast. Do you need all that? No, you don't, but it sure is nice. If you're shooting that fast, one pin is gonna take you out to 40 yards. In some cases you might only need 2, but the nice thing with it is if you're backing off the poundage like I have, I'm down to 55 pounds on my draw weight, I can get an arrow like this. It's gonna sap up all the efficiencies from this bow, and when it's coming out of that bow, it's nice and quiet. If you're looking at the weight of these arrows, you're talking about, you know, 9.8 all the way almost up to 12, not quite, 11 grains per inch. So you're looking at this little arrow, and I don't have an old style arrow here, but back in the day We said if you were pushing 400 grains for your whole setup on your arrow, great setup, because you had a lot of weight that was going to produce a lot of kinetic energy and a lot of massive damage on a deer when that broadhead went through the deer. This setup right here, you're looking at, you know, you could be 350 grains, not quite 340 grains off of one of these arrows. You put a severed broadhead on there, 100 grains, you're over 400. A lot of cases you're looking, you know, in the 300 range to 400. Weight isn't everything, but it helps. That kinetic energy helps, but you get that weight along with the speed, you're going to be very accurate out of today's modern compound bows.